Hello and welcome to Cone Glow. Today, JT, Dark Dome, and I will be discussing a personal favorite of the Glow, Tame Impala's third studio album, Currents. Released on July 17, 2015 by Modular Universal, this self-produced album has continued to impress both critics and fans since its debut. Departing from his earlier work, Kevin Parker, the genius behind Tame Impala, trades a more guitar-centric rock-influenced sound for disco beats, layered synths, and an all-around more poppy feel. We get into all of that and more over the next half hour, so just sit back and let it happen. And if you really like what you hear, follow us on Facebook, get involved, and look for more album reviews and discussions on our YouTube channel or website, coneglow.com. And with that out of the way, let's do it. All right, everybody.
And we're live.
And we're live, and we're local. Coming
Not
to
on the
you
8s.
Ooh, not on the 8s.
Nope.
the third rock from the sun. That big blue marble in space, planet Earth.
The pale blue dot.
Yeah,
Safe
here we
man.
are, the Glowcast, with another 30-minute review for you folks. And today we are doing a personal favorite of ours, Currents from Tame Impala. And they just released a couple of new songs, or they released a new song, about to release a new album, so we thought we would look
Hopefully
at
that thing's coming soon.
most
We are
recent album.
anxiously awaiting.
Indeed.
like revisiting an old friend, I'll be honest with you. Did enjoy listening to this album through again for
Mhm.
maybe the 100th time.
Yeah.
Always something new, which is why part of the reason I love this album so much.
Yep.
But
And Tame Impala in general.
yeah, and I guess I should skipped over this, but as usual, we got JT, we got
Ooh.
Teapot Dome Scandal on the other side, Dark Dome
Dark Dome is here.
coming to you live from the nation's capital.
Yeah. By the dark, near to the darkest dome of them all.
Indeed.
And
The
of course,
Capitol building.
Holmes.
Holmes
AKA
504
Jared.
here on the
Yeah.
case. Elementary, my dear Dome.
Oh, Lord. All right. So, yeah, let's get into this. Tame Impala, Currents.
Let's do it, guys.
Awesome.
So-
Beloved album.
Let's do it. Just overall feels. Anything you guys want to just start it off with?
I hated it.
Yeah, it's so
Just
overhyped. Well, actually, I feel like a lot of people. So, I guess I'll see what you guys think. But for me, it's maybe my favorite Tame Impala album. I don't know how common of a
It's just
feeling
hard.
that is.
I
Like,
don't
it's hard to say,
know.
but
It's hard to classify them.
yeah. I think that it's not a fan favorite. I think that when I read about it and I read reviews, I get two camps that I've noticed. One is the camp that I fall in, which is it's just like, oh, it's my favorite, or it has a disproportionate amount of singles that I like. And then there's, of course, just people who seem against it. Like, there doesn't seem a whole lot of, and I'm sure the middle ground does exist where most people probably aren't vehement one way or the other, but it does seem strong opinions. Like, if you don't like the sort of soul, disco, electronic sort of vibe going on, and that kind of ruined it for a lot of people, I think. But I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I am of a split mind myself about it. I even said this to Jared earlier, that part of me, like when I very first heard it, I was thinking, okay, this is my favorite one. But then after like some millions of times of listening to it, sometimes I would get to where a couple of the songs would be like, not annoying, but just like a little bit like, okay, I'm kind of done with this for now. But then when I really think about it, am I actually over them? No. It's just like, I don't feel like that at all with Inner Speaker or Lonerism. Like, I could just listen to those. Like, it never gets on my nerves. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But like, and this thing that I'm talking about only really goes for maybe like one or two songs. So like, I don't know if that's a fair thing to say of the whole album. But I think also some of the songs on it are just like fucking incredible. So I just don't know what I think about it. I think overall it's fucking good. I mean, yeah, but as far as like camps go, it's like I like change my mind depending on which one I'm listening to. So I don't know.
Yeah. And me personally, like I said, starting off, it holds a special place for me. I mean, I just this album. I mean, I don't know. Kind of contrary to what you said, I could just put this on at any time, listen to it. It's track for track. It's just really solid. And to touch on what the Dome said there, it certainly is a departure from their earlier or his earlier work, I suppose, or whatever you want to say. Very, very much less guitar centric and more poppy and dancey, kind of heavy beats or whatnot. But I think it's great. And Let It Happen is just a fantastic way to start an album.
Yeah.
It's got a couple of hidden gems, and we've talked about this before, but just the cohesion of the album, I think it fits really well together. There's a lot of themes that run throughout it that work well together. He covers, and if you want to talk about being dynamic, I think this does show a huge range, personally. And lyrically, it's really solid. And just as an overall point, like, I tend to gravitate towards bands that show growth and development and try new things and do different stuff and really push themselves as artists, because I just feel like the truly great ones, that's how they get to where they are. And this is just a great example of that to me, where Inner Speaker and Lonerism to a lesser degree, it's just, again, about, always talks about how good the guitar is in that, and then for him to just almost turn a 180 from that and go a totally different direction and do it really well. I mean, it just shows how much of a musical genius this guy is, but also just, I think it's a great album all the way through.
Yeah, well,
would recommend
for anybody. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but anybody that is not familiar, by the way, and I've read a lot of different debates about this, and it's especially on, my preferred source of all information, Reddit. No, but so Tame Impala is just Kevin Parker. Like, he writes, it's one guy. He writes all the music, does all the recording. I think he has guest musicians sometimes, and they're credited when so, but I think it's usually just a couple times per album. Like, for the most part, it's all one guy, and then he has a live band that plays. So if anybody does not know that, that is the case. It's not. It's kind of which is actually, I guess, kind of common these days. I mean, it's not completely unheard of, but I think the degree to which he is responsible for absolutely everything, and especially how commonly these sort of rock band people are typically the entire band. I think that's notable. Because he's completely responsible for these changes of sounds. It's not as if there are band members who are like, hey, let me write a song, let me make an album, or let's change up the process here. It's just one dude saying, I'm gonna make a Bee Gees album, sort of. I actually found this quote on Wikipedia, and it really stuck out with me. And it said, Kevin Parker has said that listening to the Bee Gees on mushrooms and cocaine inspired him to change the sound of the music he was making in mid-currents.
Interesting. Yeah, okay, that makes
sense. But yeah, I think that we've all independently talked about this a lot, but I feel in Tame Impala's music in general, they're very self-referential. It gets very, very meta. And that's, to the same degree on this album. I think the songs tend to Let It Happen being the opening track. It's starts off as, it's kind of this electro rock mix thing, but then by the end of it, and it's a very long song. I think it's almost 8 minutes, 7 minutes and 45 seconds or something. It's this, there comes a slow kind of beat and drag out at the very end of the song. It's just the drums and da 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 da, and it's just the kind of this driving rhythm, which is very much, again, self-referential to the Let It Happen. It's just it's building into this new sound, this more electronic sound that they've not had before. And so it's kind of just let it happen. Here we go. We're going to drag the song out. We're going to slowly transform you into this new headspace that is the new Tame Impala sound, at least for this album. So, And I don't know if that was intentional. I
I'm
feel
sure
like
it was.
it probably was, yeah. But regardless, the album feels very like lock and key, very puzzle boxy. That everything fits together in these surprising ways that are even then exact and like just so. Like it seems very, 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 very intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And yeah, if we're talking about like themes of the album, obviously the kind of overarching one is like kind of the inevitability of change, metamorphosis, development, time, and then
Yeah.
while talking about these things explicitly, he is debuting this whole new sound, talking about like going in a different direction, having these different things go in different ways, kind of, creating your personality kind of thing, and developing over time, while literally showcasing that music also does the same thing.
Right.
So yeah, again, the very meta kind of thing there.
Yeah, and well, and this is why Tame Impala is so great is the fact that it is all from one mind plays really well into these things that we're talking about. Like he can create all this lock and key and interlocking parts because it's all coming from one mind. Like he has control over all of it, and so that's the beauty of it. And that's what's really impressive about Kevin Parker himself is that he can achieve such dynamic range just by himself. Normally that takes a band, but this guy can seem to do it on his own. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's a testament. If anybody keeps up with Tame Impala news or whatever, the sort of lore behind the band. I mean, and I think he says as much in interviews where these are very meticulously crafted albums, and now more than ever, especially with his newly found fame, and again, especially regarding how meticulously these albums are created, he said he felt an insane amount of pressure to kind of reach and hit that level of, I think he used the word of like auteur, this idea of like the artist that strives for, again, these deep, specially crafted sounds. Like not, he's very much about all that. And I think you can tell, but I think he also puts a lot of pressure on himself to do it. Like these albums take a couple years to make because it is one guy, but he is trying to seemingly change with every album, but also not just put here's a sort of disco influenced album. It's good. It's like he made it he cut that shit out of diamonds and, spent all kinds of time on it. And, kind of not only did he change sound, but he did it in a way that is extremely, extremely well done. I mean, again, I guess that's a personal feeling, but I think that it definitely succeeds. I mean, I guess you can say that you don't like the sound, but I think it's hard to say that
it's a bad album.
Right. Like, I mean, with audio production and just instrumentation and everything, I mean, it's just extremely well done.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think we've kind of talked about generally how we feel about it. And I kind of want to talk about specifically, like dive into like kind of the nuts and bolts, or maybe, at least to a surface level, like kind of maybe what's your favorite aspect of it, or even it could be a favorite track, or just like an example of kind of what we're talking about just practically. Because I mean, to start off, I can talk about it as, and again, it just about this interlocking theme that's really goes throughout it. And I'm just going to use like the first 7 or 8 track listings because there's 13 and I could go through them all. But I mean, even just looking at the titles of the track listings, like you can tell he's kind of telling a story in stages of where you're going through. Like Let It Happen, the idea gets in your head. And then the next one is Nangs, which I had to look up what that was, but it's like laughing gas. It's like doing whippets, basically. It's like you kind of have this feeling. You kind of take something to try and help with it. You have this moment of where like, okay, you see the moment, and then boom, I'm changing. And then you make the change eventually. You've done it. There's a lot of gossip about it. Like you know what I mean? And those are just the track listing names, but again, it's like it's telling a story. You see it progress through the music, through the lyrics, through pretty much everything, but kind of specifically though, that's kind of one thing that I keyed in. It fits really well together. It starts with a 7.5 minute song, but there are 45-second interludes, and then the other kind of secondary thing I wanted to point out is there's just a lot of distortion. Like he plays with distortion a lot in this, like just really heavy, weird. And I think that's kind of what we experience when we go through change a lot of the time is like, things around you are distorted. They're not like they were before. You're seeing things differently. Things aren't making sense. It creates a lot of confusion, and you hear a lot of voices on top of voices, and you can hear a lot of that in the music. And yeah, that aspect of distortion and change, kind of creating distortion in your life is really well brought out in this album. But there's just a couple things that I wanted to point out. And JT, anything you'd like to talk about specifically?
Well, I guess if you're just leaving it pretty open like that, I will say that Let It Happen, I feel like is probably one of the best songs that's come out in like the last 10 years or so. Like it's just an incredible song. Like it's just so good, right? And I mean, we've like all three of us have listened to this thing probably thousands of times if you combined it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's never getting old. But yeah, it's just like it sets up the album, but also kind of continues his, you can kind of see Kevin Parker's own little personal development going through these albums, and it seems to be set up that that's continuing in the next one, which we can't wait for.
Right.
But that theme of like watching him actually develop as a person through this is happening. He like does that in a way that's not annoying. You know what I mean? Like sometimes artists do that and you're like, okay, fucking I get it. You come of age, blah, blah, blah. But like he like happens to do it in a deep enough way, in a way that is relatable, I think, that it's like, it is about him because he's writing from personal experience, but it's also like meant to be extrapolated to anyone, kind of thing. About kind of like, looking inward and just kind of the process of developing personally, but also like awakening spiritually kind of thing. And like how it's a process that like perhaps you're not really in control of, it more like kind of happens through you. And he does definitely play with that theme a lot, like kind of just the inevitability of change and just you're not necessarily the one doing it, it just is. So that's definitely a thing. And also, just a quick like side note about this album. Some people thought about it as a breakup album, quote, but he was like, no, man, that's not like, that was not, obviously eventually is like probably the best breakup song ever. Yeah. But the whole album that is meant to encompass more than that. Like that's just one part. If like, he said something about like little arrows going in different directions, and like, the person you're with is just one arrow of your ultimate path. It's not the whole thing.
Yeah.
So,
and before you jump in, Cody, I just wanted to add on to that and something that I meant to say, but his ability to express inner dialogue is really, really like high quality.
Very, very high quality.
I think that's kind of to your point where you were saying is that inner, like you can relate to his inner dialogue and you know exactly how he's feeling, which is really not easy to do.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's all I got. All right, Code School.
Well, I mean, I think that the theme of changing and changes and kind of going out on your own and facing life as an aware sort of relatively in control being is, I think, a big theme of the album, if not the theme that I really pull from it, with this idea of currents. It's something you can't stop. You just, the album artwork shows this sort of like seemingly heavy metal ball, with all of these, maybe water or something kind of going around it, and it's all spreading behind it. And of course, there's all kinds of imagery associated with that and whatever. But I think the idea of, as you guys are saying, of growing and whatnot is also really big, but it doesn't come off as being trite or whiny or overly proud. It just seems very realistic. It seems very like, these are the, like, Let It Happen Again. Like, some of the lyrics there are just incredible, where, because we even said, and Jared brought it up as well, like the song titles themselves kind of seem to tell a story to some degree, even if it's just kind of light. And, Let It Happen is obviously, like we were saying before, it's kind of this thing of like, okay, just let's get into it. Like, this is the whole, this is the new album, this is the new sound. But then that's, that's another layer. But then the lyrics are more about kind of the same thing, like almost saying essentially exactly that. But it also relates to being like a whole different person, not just like, oh, this is my new sound. He's like, a lot of the songs do with like, I am a new person now. Like, things are like, it's okay for me to grow and change and not just be making a new Tame Impala album, but to like be a different Kevin Parker, for whatever that means. And some of the lyrics are, all this running around trying to cover my shadow, I mean, just this idea of like, he's changing, but, and there's other lyrics where, what does it say? Maybe it's from like another song, but I was like, I was raging, it was late, in the world my demons cultivate. It's just these ideas that like, maybe he's not living a bad life. I don't think that's exactly the idea, though. The world my demons cultivate, of course, seems bad, but it's more just like, he doesn't, maybe he's coming to terms with the fact that maybe it's to coincide with his fame or the rising popularity of like, he doesn't have to be this, certain musician. He doesn't have to have whether the sound of it or how he behaves in his personal life. Like, maybe there was pressure to, be a certain way or to party more or whatever. And I'm not saying he doesn't, I have no idea, but I feel like it's very much an album that's it's just very loudly saying like, whatever like sort of ropes are being kind of attached to me, whether it's professional or by my album or my personal life or what people think of me as a person or how I think of me as a person. I feel like this was a very defiant sort of stand up of like, I am not going to really kowtow to any of that. Like, this is like, I'm changing, like, things are different, like, let it happen. Like, and then there's this, the moment, which it talks about kind of choosing what you want your life to be in the moment. I think the lyric is, I won't know until the moment, or ask me in the moment or something. And I think that's another cool one, because it's like, you don't, it's giving into the ride, to giving into the current. Like, you just kind of are floating along and you get to make the decision like as it comes, like, okay, do I go left or right?
Is growing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you get to like choose and be excited about that. It's not just like I said, I use the word defiant. It's not just a bad thing, like, or even an aggressive thing. It's like, hey, just ask me in the moment. I'll tell you how I feel. I'll tell you what I want to do. I'll tell you the decision that I'm going to make. Like, because even this album, he's saying, is like not defining him. Like, oh, okay, I made like this vaguely disco album, like, but ask me in the moment in 3 or 4 years when I make another album and how I feel about it and what I'm going to do next, and it's going to be different. And I think the whole album's about that. I mean, there's a couple of things that seem to be more about relationships, like the less I know, the better, and stuff like that. But for the most part, even stuff like past life and new person, same old mistakes. Like, the whole album just talks about this idea of somebody just changing and getting older and trying to figure out what that means. I mean, I don't know how to more succinctly put it. I just think, like, if we wanted to talk about why I like the album so much, I think we'd literally have to go through song by song, lyric by lyric, and we just don't have the time. But I think that the album deserves it, and I think that's what kind of draws all of us into it, at least the three of us, because I know we've talked about this, is just how much you can just tear apart lyrics and say, oh, this refers to that, and this is that, and this is the meta part of this, and this works with that theme. And so without doing that, it's hard to explain, but that's all.
That is one thing with him, is like, there's so, like, you can listen to these songs and analyze it just on a musical, like, just on a, he is talking about his music and his fame, but then there's like these deeper levels. It's like you can almost always like dive deeper into each song. You know, like again, there's a couple songs that are more like just a one thing, but then almost always there's something more that you can learn if you really dive deep into the lyrics and meaning of it. So that's what's another thing that's so good about him. It's like there's always another layer to it.
Yeah, and another kind of aspect I wanted to hit on just quickly is like just how unique the sound is as well. It just doesn't, because I was trying to think of what it best compares to, and I was having real trouble with it because it's like I can't really think of just like a flat out like, oh, if you listen to this, then you'll love this Currents album. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, because
hard to say.
Yeah, and I mean the comparison, the best comparison I can make is like Kevin Parker reminds me of David Bowie a little bit, because it's like he's got this incredible range. Like, you know, Bowie goes from, you know, God knows, like Ziggy Stardust to like Let's Dance to, you know, whatever. The guy was obviously brilliant, but I just get a lot of that Bowie feel. But although I'm just talking more musically, like personality wise, they're obviously very different. I take Kevin Parker as kind of a recluse, but and his stage presence isn't great. But
no, it's not great.
Doesn't even matter though.
Oh no,
it
doesn't matter at all. But you know, he's not David Bowie on stage. I'll tell you that much. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, if you guys were to compare it to something, like, I mean,
I don't know.
Again, it's the uniqueness of it. I think is also something that's really plays.
Yeah, it's really hard because I mean, Inner Speaker and Lonerism have more direct comparisons in things like the Beatles and other older psychedelic rock,
Right.
you know, like Jefferson Starship and, you know, these other things. But yeah, Tame, with the jump that they made, because it's easier to refer to general vague album or genres. Like, again, I keep saying disco, even though it's not, and it seems unfair to even, you know, but, you know, even he says it's Bee Gees related, but yeah, I really don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's gonna be a million people out there listening that can say, oh, you fucking imbeciles, like, here's 10 albums by other bands that are similar. And you know, but I have yet to come across something that's so distinctly Currents. Like, I mean, you can say, oh, this album band is similar to Tame Impala in general, like in this sort of like psych pop rock thing, but even if you can show me another album that is, or band that is like Currents, like, I'd be extremely interested.
Yeah.
I mean, LCD Sound System is a little like that, maybe.
Yeah, with the repetition and the self-referentialism and the sort of, I think to some degree, but like, would they?
But then
you
again,
ever hear
like the bass lines and stuff, it's like,
they're different for sure.
Yeah.
I was just kind of
yeah. No, I mean,
reaching for
it's certainly
something.
comparable, absolutely.
I mean, something like I've actually been reminded at times of, and I think you mentioned it earlier with like distortion, but they also have this sort of blooming wall of sound that's not necessarily aggressive and it's very washy, but it's very effective, and they control the volume very well on it. Where in the mixing, where these sounds like pulsate and kind of
that washed
exist
out.
on there.
That's definitely that's a great descriptor for it.
Yeah, and this is all his like phasers and these different things that he uses. And oh man, I don't even know where I was going with that, to be honest with you. It's just that when you put it all together, that's what makes it so unique. It's not that these elements haven't existed in the past in other albums and in other things, but I think altogether it's really hard to put another comparison to something out there.
All right, so we're almost time to wrap up. What do we got for last little?
Yeah, so I was thinking maybe
takes?
for this last one to make it tough on everybody is I was gonna say like pick your favorite track off of it, but let's go hidden gem. Your hidden gem from Currents,
okay,
and then let's do a numerical rating as well out of 10. Okay. And Cody, for clarification, a 5 is in the middle, so that's going to be mediocre. 1.
But what I'm trying to say though is, would you consider 5 an insult though? That was what I was saying, because like 5 should theoretically be what most music is.
Well, do you think
what I'm saying?
Mediocre music is an insult? That's the question.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Very fair. All right.
Do you think a 50% on a test is good?
That's not the point.
I'm just
No.
kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. That's not the same thing. I just thought it was funny.
Not at all. Anyway, so yeah, okay. So hidden gem. Who's going first?
I'll go. I mean, The Moment is definitely my hidden gem. I love that song because just where it's at in the album itself, like track listing wise, and it's kind of just it gets lost sometimes. I feel like amongst the other kind of heavy hitters, but going back through and listening through it again, I always am like, oh yeah, this is definitely one that I like. This is one of my jams here, and yeah, 10 out of 10. Highly recommended.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, The Moment was what I was gonna say, but I do have a backup, and I think this may have actually been a single, but I'm not sure, and it's not one that I feel like people talk about much. But "Cause I'm a Man," is that a big song from them? Is that a hidden gem?
Yeah, that's definitely a hidden gem.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know if that was a single.
They got a little bit of I don't think it was like a huge.
Either way, the album as a whole, I mean, it's hard to not say 10 out of 10, I guess. I'm not going to say that just because I feel like there's albums that I do like better, and I don't know what I'd tell them, but it's only like one, maybe two other albums. So I'm going to say like 9.9 and just cut it just a little bit. I mean, and I guess mostly a joke. I mean, I would say 10 out of 10. I mean, it's good all the way through for a bunch of different reasons.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna say Disciples is my hidden gem.
One.
Yeah, that one, I don't know. It is a little bit different than the rest. It has a different kind of little mood to it or something.
Mm-hmm.
And also I think it's kind of different because it's like, instead of talking about himself changing, it's like watching somebody else change and how that affects you, like when you're
the view from the outside.
Like the view from the outside. Yeah, exactly. Because of course, while we are all living and changing, anyone else around us is also doing the same. So anyways, that's my hidden gem. And I'm going to go with, 9.5 just to shake things up a bit. But yeah, I mean, I can't go definitely lower than 9. No way. Yeah. Because of course, it's a solid album. Even just while we're listening today, I discovered some new meanings to a couple songs. So yeah, if you can do that a few years after a thing, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I do want to
especially after you've
quick
listened to it hundreds
of
of times.
That's a good one.
He's like, I was going to the dry cleaners.
It was Thursday, 12:30. Yeah, at first I didn't
that
like
kind
it.
of
And after a while,
I loved that. Oh man, I loved that. When I first listened to the album the first time, that was my favorite song specifically because of that. There's something about that I love, that weird deep talk over. I loved that.
Well, that's where that theme of distortion, that obviously it's so heavy.
Yeah, it does that crazy like tape loop distortion sound that it's great. That's one thing I have to mention. I'm not going to get back into things. I don't want to start a new loop of things, but I would be remiss to not say that it's stuff like that the little production techniques that make this album and other Tame Impala albums stand out, like those, like what you just said, like that distortion sound, that tape loop sound, and how his vocal, all of that production. It's like, yes, we can talk forever about everything else, but those production values are just outstanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, such attention to detail of every little placement of everything.
And it just so captures the idea of trying to remember something from so long ago that it seems like a past life. Like it's so good at expressing that thought and feeling. You know what I mean?
The sounds express moods in extremely precise ways. Like the bass lines sound like these 80s, 70s retro, but semi-synthy bass line. I mean, it's just the way that it all fits together. Like I said, we'd really need to talk about this album or Tame Impala in a more broad way to really express why we probably all just gave it 9s and 10s. But that's all I guess I could
if
really
you
say.
haven't heard it, it will...
Yeah, go listen to
51
Tame
minutes
Impala.
of your life.
Yeah, just do a bunch of mushrooms and cocaine, I guess, and listen
to
or some nangs.
Do some whippets.
Do some nangs.
Yeah.
Which is not endorsed officially, by the way.
Yeah, we should make clear here. But anywho. Well, guys, that's it. About wraps it up for us. We better cut it off before we talk for another 30 minutes.
Yeah. But let us know what you think. We're going to try a couple different these album review formats. We definitely like it being the three of us. It brings, we hope, like, some cool perspectives, and, because we don't have to just love it or hate it. It can be a mixed thing. And so we've tried doing an album that we all love. We've tried doing an album that none of us had known. We're going to try a couple other things. So, just let us know what you think.
Yeah, feedback is very important for these for us.
Yeah, if you don't want us to hear, sorry, what?
Oh, I was going to say, of course, as soon as Kevin Parker does release this new one, you can expect one
we'll
from
be all over that.
Yeah, we'll have to give it a couple weeks to digest it, but you can be assured that album will get a review at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's all I've got.
And just a last quick plug here for all you fans, we are going to try and get a Bonnaroo primer out if you're going.
Oh yeah,
festival, so look for that. But anywho, well, that'll about do it for us here on the Glowcast. I'm Holmes 504, JT, Teapot Dome.
Over and out.
All
Keep
right.
it glowing.
Whoa.
Bye, guys.